Cough. 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 On top of a sandalwood bed with an antique style, laid a sickly youth who abruptly started coughing violently. It looked as if he would not stop unless he coughs up his lungs out. The youth's lips were purplish, and his face was pale. It was a clear sign that he was not long for this world. However, his violent cough made the young madam beside him frantic. The young madam looked around 30 years old, and even though she was not in her prime, she still retained her graceful charm. At this moment, her tightly locked brows finally eased up slowly, and she quickly grabbed hold of that sickly youth's hand. "UNER. You finally woke up. You scared mother to death. Quickly call the family head back. UNER already woke up, so the matter at hand is to treat UNER first. We will settle this debt with the Wan family in the future." The servant quickly left upon hearing the young madam's orders. Yet at this moment, the youth paid no heed to all these and only focused on coughing. Suddenly, "Hawork." A mouthful of black blood was spat out. The black blood quickly corroded a large hole in the bedding. Clearly, it was highly toxic. After spitting out that mouthful of blood, the youth seemed to completely relax. He looked at the anxious young madam, and a strange yet familiar feeling welled up inside his heart. He attempted to recall who this woman was, only to feel a splitting headache. "UNER, what's wrong? Is the intestine-rupturing grass poison triggering again? Quick! Bring a high-grade detoxification pill for young master to eat," the young madam said with a face full of concern. Another servant left to follow the order. The youth used this chance to rearrange the multitude of memories in his brain, and then he finally remembered who the woman in front of his eyes was. This woman was none other than his biological mother, Ren Hongling. And he himself, or more accurately the original owner of this body, was called Ye Yuan. Ye Yuan was born in one of the top alchemy families within the state of Qin. The family head was Ye Hang, who was also Ye Yuan's father, a low-grade alchemy grandmaster, an existence who held a prominent position within the state of Qin. But sadly, Ye Hang was a tiger father who begot a dog for a son, having a useless silk pants, Ye Yuan, for a son. He only knew how to cause trouble every day and harmed good women. He did not even manage to become an alchemy apprentice after so long. It was such a disgrace that his face was thrown all the way back to his grandma's place. However, Ye Hang did not mind all these. He never had any expectations for his son and had let Ye Yuan do whatever he wanted. He was even overprotective of him to the extreme. Every time Ye Yuan caused trouble outside, Ye Hang would end up wiping his *SS. But as a father, he always hoped for his son to be promising. In the end, Ye Hang paid a huge price to admit Ye Yuan into the Danwu Academy, all just for the off chance that he would learn something. Who would have thought that this punk Ye Yuan would get jealous over a woman and confidently challenged someone to a detoxification competition? The end result was that he poisoned himself to death. After recalling his predecessor's memory, Ye Yuan sighed lightly. The original owner of this body could be considered one of a kind. To have actually killed himself in such manner, what sort of great courage and intellect were needed to do this? Forget it. To think that I, Qin Yunzi, a dignified alchemy emperor successor, would one day end up transmigrated into the body of a silk pants. But since the heavens blessed me, Qin Yunzi, to rebirth once more, I will take revenge for father, for myself, and kill that wildly ambitious traitor with my own hands. Thinking up to this point, Ye Yuan's expression became fierce, and his eyes filled with killing intent. Ren Hongling obviously noticed Ye Yuan's expression, and he thought that Ye Yuan bore a grudge towards that punk from the Wan family for harming him. She quickly tried to console him and said, "Son, one should abide one's time and wait for the right opportunity to seek vengeance. Our Ye family will definitely settle this debt, but right now, the most important thing for you is to recuperate. We can discuss other matters in the future." Feeling Ren Hongling's motherly love, Ye Yuan felt touched in his heart, He inherited this body, so he naturally also inherited this body's feelings. No matter how much of a B***** Ye Yuan was outside, he cared deeply for his parents who loved him very much. "Mother, I'm sorry to have worried you." Ren Hongling was stunned by her son's words. This punk caused trouble all the time outside that her heart was almost crushed, and yet she had never heard this punk say any heartfelt words. What's wrong with him today? Could it be that after this incident, he suddenly woke up to reality? After being stunned for a while, Ren Hongling immediately became overjoyed. With tears in her eyes, she said, "As long as you are all right." At this moment, bam! The door to the room was kicked open. "You aren't dead yet, you punk. You really scared your father," a thunderous voice shouted, making Ye Yuan's eardrums hurt. Even though the words were not very pleasant, anyone could hear the joy and concern within those words. Needless to say, the family head, Ye Hang, has arrived. Ye Hang was born a little boorish. Nobody would connect him with his noble status as an alchemy grandmaster. In fact, he looked more like a rugged man from the mountains. Hearing her husband's words, Ren Hongling turned over and glared at him. "You just escaped death. Can't you say something nicer?" Ye Hang did not mind her words and took a glance at the black blood before calming down. He laughed and said, "Looks like my, Ye Hang's son, has a blessed life. To even survive this, ha ha ha. Come, quickly swallow this detoxification pill, and purge the residual toxins from your body. You should be fine afterward." Ye Hang casually took out a medicinal pill and was just about to stuff it into Ye Yuan's mouth. Seeing this, Ye Yuan immediately jumped in fright and quickly shrunk back into his bed. "Can this thing even be eaten?" Ye Yuan cried out in shock. Glaring with anger in his eyes, Ye Hang snarled, "You little punk, did the poison screw your brain up? Did you forget what status your father has?" Ren Hongling also thought that Ye Yuan had some misgiving about the pill and quickly said, Your father is an alchemy grandmaster. Even if His Majesty meets him, he will show some respect. Furthermore, this is your father. Would he possibly harm you?" Ye Yuan's mouth twitched, and he declined to comment. He obviously knew that this medicinal pill was a detoxification pill, only that its quality was a little too weak. In his past life, King Yunzi's father was an alchemy emperor. He grew up eating medicinal pills as if he was eating jelly beans. How could he not even recognize something ordinary like the detoxification pill? Although eating this pill would help to restrain the toxins in his body, its effects were too weak and would not be able to thoroughly eliminate all the residual toxins within his body. The average alchemists were unable to detect these toxins, and it would not have too great of an effect on Ye Yuan's health in the future. But these toxins would lay hidden inside his body and would continuously become the body's burden. It would even affect his future advancements in the martial path. The intestine-rupturing grass naturally was not worth mentioning in Ye Yuan's eyes. It was not even worth much in Ye Hang's eyes. It was just that when Ye Yuan was sent back home, the poison already spread thoroughly. He was only breathing in and not out, unable to even eat the detoxification pill. That's why Ye Hang was utterly helpless and was preparing to bring people to go fight it out with the Wan family. Before dying, King Yunzi was already at the alchemy emperor standard, so he could not be any more clear about these medicinal theories. His worldview and horizon obviously could not be compared with an alchemy grandmaster like Ye Hang. Looking at his son's expression, Ye Hang felt severely provoked. "You little punk. To actually dare question your father's pill refinement standards." Ye Yuan stared helplessly at the dull-looking black pill in his father's hand. Looking once again at the rage in his father's eyes, he opened his mouth and said, "Red abalone grass was more by 2 parts, and green snake gall lacked by 1 part. It should have been a result of inadequate control when refining the pill. The biggest mistake was adding iron sulfate into the detoxification pill. Not only did it not improve the medicinal effects, It even messed up the composition of this detoxification pill. Father, since you have difficulty refining Tier 3 medicinal pill, you should just lower your standards. Yahang's facial expression was fascinating right now. He was at first angry, followed by astonishment, and finally, he was left dumbfounded. He was the one who refined this pill, so he was naturally aware of its properties. Yuan's analysis was as if he saw it with his own eyes, and even if he saw it personally, he should not be able to analyze it this accurately. Is this punk really his son? Yahang could not help but become suspicious. Only after sizing him up did he confirm that this was indeed his son. Stop staring. I'm your son, really. Seeing Yahang's expression, Yuan could not help but feel a little guilty, so he quickly defended himself. Hey brat, you couldn't possibly have pretended to be a pig in order to eat a tiger in the past, right? That's not right, because if you were really playing a sucker to catch a sucker, then why is it that you can't even resolve the poison from the intestine rupturing grass? Yahang felt that things did not quite add up. Rolling his eyes, Yuan quickly snatched the detoxification pill in Yahang's hands and swallowed it. It was not that Yahang's medicine was ineffective, but instead, Yuan's current condition was extremely abysmal. Although Yahang's medicine would have some side effects, Yuan could not be bothered to care much. At the moment, it was more important to alleviate the symptoms on this wretched body. As for the hidden dangers left behind by this detoxification pill, Yuan naturally has means to eliminate it. Ever since obtaining this body, the great alchemy emperor xianxia could not bear to look at his own physique. He seriously did not understand how his predecessor survived for the past 10 years or so. Born in a prestigious alchemy family, yet this punk did not even manage to reach the second-level xianxia realm. Even if it was in a mortal country, being born in such a family and eating the most ordinary xianxia pills like sweets, one should be at the 4th-level xianxia realm and above, right? Wanting to cry but no tears flowed. This alchemy emperor could only use such phrase to describe his current emotion. Using this dreadful body to withstand such a violent poison, no wonder Yuan died. Although xianxia was now in possession of this body, there really was not much he could do with it at the moment. He could only do things one step at a time. In the eyes of others, Yuan's act of snatching the pill was revealing his true colors. However, Yahang smirked. Ha! I knew you were bluffing. You actually scared me for a moment. Just now, Yahang realized something was amiss. This punk definitely snuck a look at the pill formula or overheard the family's retainers talked about him refining this detoxification pill. That was how he managed to know all the details about the pill. Since this punk was already cracking jokes, there should not be any major issues with his condition. Regarding this, Yuan definitely would not explain anything. Being ignorant and faking incompetence suited this body more. It would be better if he maintained a low profile. Father, mother, I'm a little tired and want to rest for now. Yuan, wanting to recuperate, requested them to leave. You just recovered from a major illness. You should indeed rest more. If there is anything, let Lui'er inform us. His parents then brought everyone out of the room. Yuan started to meditate. He circulated essence energy within his body to absorb the medicinal effect of the detoxification pill and purge the poison in his body. However, the essence energy in his body was pitifully little, that he could only imagine its weak efficacy. An alchemy emperor of his generation just got another chance in life and then survived after being poisoned, but now nearly died from exasperation. By the time all the medicinal effects from the pill in Yuan's body were fully absorbed, it was almost done. This round of meditation actually took 12 hours. What a piece of work! But this bout of hard work finally showed some results. Yuan's current complexion was apparently much more radiant and rosier in color. The toxins in his body were already pretty much neutralized. This naturally was not anything remarkable to the current Yuan. With xianxia's attainments in the Dao of alchemy, To thoroughly dig out all the efficacy of this tiny detoxification pill naturally was not difficult at all. Thinking about it now, even though his predecessor was not serious about training, it was actually a blessing. Currently, this body was akin to a blank piece of paper. Qin Yunzi could fiddle with it freely and not worry about wrecking this body. If his predecessor practiced martial arts haphazardly, Qin Yunzi would instead need to pay a hefty price to rebuild his foundation. This actually saved him some trouble. It was just that although intestine-rupturing grass poison was nothing serious, the efficacy of Yehang's detoxification pill was severely limited. Tiny amounts of residual toxins were still present in the body. Moreover, this detoxification pill had its own flaws, which also further left some medicinal toxins within Ye Yuan's body. After dawn breaks, he would need to find some medicinal herbs to completely eradicate the hidden dangers which could manifest in the future. Luckily, the Ye family is one of the prestigious alchemy families in the state of Qin. Getting some medicinal herbs would not be an issue. There was still some time left before dawn. Ye Yuan decided to properly strategize the path to take after his rebirth. In the previous life, Qin Yunzi was obsessed with the Dao of alchemy and somewhat neglected the martial Dao. Otherwise, he would not be completely helpless in front of that traitor. Qin Yunzi cultivated martial arts in order to refine better pills. As long as it was enough to use, it was all good. Because of this, he became the youngest alchemy emperor in the divine realm. That year when he became an alchemy emperor, he was hailed by all major holy lands as the genius who was most likely to become an alchemy god in these tens of thousands of years. One had to know, no one had managed to reach the level of an alchemy god for several millennia. However, all that glory had become history. Today, there was no longer the divine realm's genius Qin Yunzi, but only the lower realm's youth Ye Yuan who now stepped onto the path of revenge. Since he had to take revenge against that traitor, Qin Yunzi would have to be diligent in the martial path in this life. Although that traitor's talent in the Dao of alchemy was only slightly worse than Qin Yunzi, he was nonetheless undoubtedly a genius of the martial Dao. To surpass him, the current Ye Yuan would have to put a lot of effort. Initially, for a lower realm's youth in a mortal country, the most lacking aspect was definitely resources and techniques. Resources to the current Ye Yuan were indeed a luxury, but what he lacked the least was techniques. Regardless whether in the lower realm or in the divine realm, an alchemist was always treated with exceptional respect. Furthermore, Qin Yunzi's father, xianxia, was the #1 alchemy emperor in the divine realm. The numbers of techniques accumulated over the years were countless. Even though Qin Yunzi was not very receptive to the martial Dao, but in order to assist in alchemic procedures, he extensively studied many martial art manuals to improve his cultivation. To find a few techniques suitable for him was naturally nothing difficult. Sorting out the memories of his previous life, Ye Yuan finally decided on a martial art called the Spirit Bristle Nine Yang Divine Art as his core cultivation technique. This martial art was the core cultivation technique of the divine realm's renowned Spirit Bristle Divine King. That year, to refine a 9th-rank medicinal pill, he came to beg xianxia. However, failing to amass sufficient remuneration, instead, he left his primary cultivation technique behind. This technique was abnormally tyrannical. Spirit Bristle Divine King relied on this technique to become undefeated in the divine realm, becoming one of the top 10 most mysterious existence. In the divine realm, anything with the word divine attached to it was incomparably precious. Such item would cause an absolute bloodfest. That year when the Spirit Bristle Nine Yang Divine Art was revealed, the entire divine realm was shaken. In order to snatch this technique, it was set over 10 divine kings fell. In the end, it ended up in the hands of the then little-known figure, the Spirit Bristle Divine King. He laid low for over a decade before bursting forth, becoming the divine realm's top divine king in a single stroke. Were it not for how extraordinarily precious and vital the 9th-rank medicinal pill was to the Spirit Bristle Divine King, there was no way he would have used this technique to exchange for it. Of course, He was at ease with passing this technique over to xianxia because xianxia and his son were obsessed with the Dao of alchemy and had neither ulterior motive nor any intention to contend in this world. Ye Yuan studied the spirit bristle Nine-Yang divine art before cultivating according to the manual. Traces of essence energy seeped through the body and started giving off a faint yellow glow. At the essence G realm, a cultivator would direct essence energy from the heaven and earth into the body. This was the foundation realm in cultivation. Essence G realm might appear seemingly unimportant. However, it was a vital realm when cultivating martial arts. A towering skyscraper built on flat ground would require a solid foundation. Without a proper foundation, it would be like a rootless plant which would one day fail to support its growth. It was common knowledge among cultivators. But when cultivating martial arts, only a few actually applied this. Many cultivators would blindly pursue cultivation speed and unknowingly cut off their own future. Hue of up. 4 hours later, Ye Yuan awakened from his meditation and exhaled a long breath. This spirit bristle Nine-Yang divine art is indeed powerful. Although these 4 hours of cultivation didn't increase much essence in my body, the quality is extremely pure. If I carry on cultivating like this, wouldn't I be invincible within the same realm? Ye Yuan, who used to be an alchemy emperor, naturally had broad horizons. For him to give such an appraisal to this technique showed how extraordinary it was. During the past 4 hours, Ye Yuan had used the spirit bristle Nine-Yang divine art to temper what little essence energy his predecessor had. This process refined the essence energy in his danshan, which led to it becoming much more pure in terms of quality. But by doing so, his realm did not advance. Instead, it deteriorated all the way down to the first level essence G realm. Fortunately, his predecessor neglected his cultivation during the past years. Otherwise, Ye Yuan would have to expend much effort to refine his body's essence energy. This could be considered profiting from a disaster. Now that the sky was already bright, Ye Yuan got up and left the room to grab some medicines for his body from the Ye family's medicine warehouse. Right after stepping out of the room, a green figure collided with him. The green figure was naturally Louis R., who was also Ye Yuan's maidservant responsible for his daily life. Louis R. was lovely and cute, especially with a pair of bright eyes which aroused the affection of others. Coupled with a long green dress, she looked like a little green pixie. With regards to Louis R., Ye Yuan obviously knew her well. She was his playmate since young and also the person closest to Ye Yuan apart from his parents. Within the household as well as outside of it, nobody thought highly of Ye Yuan, with Louis R. as the sole exception. No matter how much of a scoundrel Ye Yuan was outside, Louis R. took care of Ye Yuan with all her heart. Therefore, the current Ye Yuan instinctively felt close to Louis R., as if she was his little sister, even though his predecessor also enjoyed teasing Louis R. In reality, even though Ye Yuan was atrocious, he actually would not force himself onto women. He only enjoyed causing some mischief. It was just that sometimes, his pranks were a little over the top. Having inherited his predecessor's memories, Ye Yuan discovered that his predecessor's talent was not considered bad. It was just all these bad habits were the outcome of being spoiled. In this aspect, his father, Ye Hang, had to bear substantial responsibility for it. Except, a father's love was akin to a mountain. Ye Yuan obviously could not blame all these on Ye Hang. Instead, he felt very touched, as Ye Hang was just like his past life's father. "Why, young master?" "Yeeth. Why, you are all right." Louis R. bumped into Ye Yuan and was initially perturbed by it. Raising her head, she saw that Ye Yuan was full of spirit and vigor, and she immediately became overjoyed. Sensing Louis R's concern which came from her heart, Ye Yuan laughed and said, "I'm fine, your young master is a lucky man. After not dying due to this crisis, my future fortunes will be limitless." Tee. "Young master, you are so humorous. But Louis R. also feels that since you didn't die in this disaster, in the future, you might really be different. A casual remark sounded significant to an attentive listener. Unsure of where Lui'er's confidence came from, Yuan's heart skipped a beat. Thinking to himself, this girl's thought process was really too keen. Yuan instantly laughed and said, "All right, accompany young master to bring some medicinal herbs back from the fragrant medicine pavilion." Lui'er did not speak, and just lowered her head and followed Yuan. The fragrant medicine pavilion was the medicinal shop which the Ye family established. It was one of the great powers in the state of Qin. Naturally, it was thanks to Ye Hang's identity as an alchemy grandmaster. In the tiny state of Qin, the status of an alchemy master was already incomparably honorable, let alone an alchemy grandmaster. Because of Ye Hang's status, the fragrant medicine pavilion possessed an extraordinary position. In the state of Qin, the identity of an alchemy grandmaster itself was a golden signboard. Hence, the fragrant medicine pavilion had always been a household name. Ye Hang obviously would not personally be out there to diagnose people, but the fragrant medicine pavilion's power was not to be underestimated. The fragrant medicine pavilion's main branch, which was situated at the capital, had an alchemy master stationed to diagnose people daily. This was not something that a small power could accomplish. Yuan brought Lui'er inside the fragrant medicine pavilion and immediately attracted a few side glances. From the employees' eyes, Yuan saw fear, scorn, as well as disdain. This made Yuan shook his head silently, thinking to himself that his predecessor's reputation was really too terrible, even causing innocent bystanders to get into trouble. Yuan naturally would not bother with these servants. He walked straight up to the counter and said to an alchemy apprentice, "Paper and brush." This alchemy apprentice knew Yuan's status and did not dare to delay. He pulled out a paper and a brush and placed it respectfully in front of Yuan. Yuan took them, and it did not take much time for him to write down a list of medicinal herbs before giving it back to the alchemy apprentice. Yuan was not long-winded and directly ordered, "Get these medicinal herbs for me. If there's any problem, look for my father." The alchemy apprentice swept a look through the list of herbs and only relaxed after not seeing anything overly precious. Turning around, he left to get the medicinal herbs. These herbs were very ordinary, but the prescription was not. In his past life, Yuan was an alchemy emperor of his generation. Since young, he studied and memorized all sorts of pill formulas. His understanding of medicinal herbs and medicinal effects had already reached an unfathomable level. Were it not the case, he would not have been hailed as the genius most likely to reach the alchemy god realm. The alchemy apprentice clearly did not understand Yuan's intention. He thought that the silk pants had a change of nature and started to play with medicinal herbs. While the alchemy apprentice was getting the medicinal herbs, Yuan brought Lui'er to wait in the fragrant medicine pavilion's consultation room. The master on duty lightly glanced at Yuan and continued treating patients after expressing his contempt. The masters stationed here were at the alchemy master level, all of whom were retainers invited by Ye Hang. Ignoring the fragrant medicine pavilion, even when placed in the entire state of Qin, they were people who had some status. Those who came to get treated were all inflicted with unusual illnesses, those that ordinary people could not address. After witnessing a master's diagnosis, Yuan shook his head silently. If Yuan were the one on duty, he would be able to provide several, even dozens, of more superior prescriptions. It was just that something like this would be far too astounding. Either way, that master's formula would work, so Yuan obviously would not take any unnecessary actions. Next, the attendant beside the master called out lifelessly. A brawny-looking man came forward, except his condition did not look too good. His face was purple, and there was death chi around his forehead. Furthermore, he was coughing non-stop. Clearly, it was symptoms of poisoning. The master took his pulse and looked at his tongue. Frowning slightly, he said, "You are just a tiny little 8th level essence chi realm. To actually recklessly entered the endless forest. The deadly poison of the 7 evils flowing cloud python isn't pleasant, right? The brawny man did not become unhappy because of the master's ridicule. Instead, he revealed a face filled with admiration and gave a bitter smile. Great master is wise, but I don't have a choice. My entire family relies on me to survive, so I have no other alternative but to become a demonic beast hunter. In the past, my companions and I only moved around the borders of the endless forest. Who would have thought that this time, we would encounter a demonic beast like the 7 evils flowing cloud python? It's also because I was lucky that I managed to make it back. Both of my companions died at its jaws. After explaining, the brawny-looking man became dejected. Clearly, it reminded him of the tragedy. The 7 evils flowing cloud python was a second-ranked demonic beast, the equivalent of a human spirit condensation realm. Furthermore, as a demonic beast, its combat power was even higher compared to a human. The brawny-looking man was only at the 8th level xianxia realm, and it was likely that his companions were not much different. So how could they be its match? It was already fortunate for him to escape with his life. The master nodded and said, "You were indeed lucky. A 7 evils flowing cloud python is extremely vicious and tough. Being able to escape with your life can already be considered lucky. This poison might pose some trouble at other places, but it isn't something difficult in my fragrant medicine pavilion. Except, you have to know that this is a high-grade poison, so the price isn't low." Hearing this, the brawny-looking man was ecstatic. He had already been to many medicinal establishments, and all of them were helpless on this matter. Furthermore, the fragrant medicine pavilion's remuneration tends to be very high. So unless he had no other alternatives, he would absolutely not come here. But he knew that the poison had already spread thoroughly. If he did not get it treated, he probably would not make it past these few days. Therefore, he could only brace himself and enter the fragrant medicine pavilion. Who would have expected that the master here was indeed amazing and managed to identify the crux of the problem with a single glance? "Don't worry, master. I managed to save some money over these few years. Initially, I wasn't willing to take it out to treat the poison. However, my entire family is relying solely on me. If I die, their lives will become much harder. As long as master can treat the 7 evils flowing cloud python's poison, the treatment fee will be paid in full." The brawny-looking man coughed as he said this. Wealth and opportunity came with danger. Demonic beast hunter was an occupation that lived on the edge of danger. This brawny-looking man naturally had some savings. As a matter of fact, the effects of the detoxification pill which Yehang refined were even better. Except, his status was too high, and it was difficult to request to him even for the refinement of one detoxification pill. Usually, he only interacted with the state of Qin's imperial family. Furthermore, the fees were atrocious. A medicinal pill of that level was obviously not something that this poor, brawny-looking man could afford. Having heard this, the master was not going to be long-winded either. Instructing an attendant, he said, "Green flow grass 6 grams, vermilion soul sand 6 grams, iron wind eagle's inner core 9 grams, and throw in some daystar to supplement it. After brewing it, let this warrior drink it, and that will do it. Additionally, prepare 2 more sets of medicine for him to bring back." The attendant acknowledged this, took the prescription, and sent it off. Upon returning, he was about to call out next when someone gestured for him to stop. The person signaling the attendant was Yayuan, who was by the side all along. Noticing Yayuan had stopped him, the attendant hesitated because Yayuan was the young master of this fragrant medicine pavilion. Coupled with him having a terrible reputation, the attendant naturally did not dare to offend this person. "Uncle Qian, that medicine isn't right. It would kill a person." Yayuan went there and whispered. Yayuan was no longer the useless moron his predecessor was. Seeing as they were in the same boat, Yayuan naturally had to maintain the latter's reputation. so he only whispered in a very low voice. This great master was named xianxia. Having spent many years in the Ye family as a retainer, he was well qualified and had a much respected status. Although his attainments in the Dao of alchemy cannot be compared to Ye Hang, he was definitely no ordinary man. After listening to a junior's nonsense, his facial expression changed instantly. "Little Yuan, what nonsense are you talking about? It's one thing to run amok every day, but another to wreck the business that your father took great pains to establish. This old Qian will definitely be the first person to not spare you. You must know that for Fragrant Medicine Pavilion to have its status today was not only because of the family head. We old bones expended a great deal of effort too. All right, go back. There are still many patients waiting for their treatments." Qian Miao clearly held Fragrant Medicine Pavilion dearly and did not have much patience to deal with Ye Yuan. A tiger did not father a dog, but this was clearly a pup. Many times before this did Qian Miao felt sorry for Ye Hang. Today, this punk actually crawled on top of his head to mess around and even warned him that he was harming someone. How could his expression not change? If he did not take into account this punk was Ye Hang's son, he would have long sent Ye Yuan flying with a slap. Ye Yuan already expected Qian Miao's reaction. After all, his predecessor was indeed a piece of work. Therefore, he did not mind the harsh words. Were it not for the fact Qian Miao's diagnosis would affect the Fragrant Medicine Pavilion's reputation, Ye Yuan would not choose to stand out. He had instead continued to maintain his image as a wastrel. If Qian Miao continued with this prescription, the brawny man in front of them would not only fail to be saved, it would aggravate the poison even more. This man most likely would not survive the night. To the Fragrant Medicine Pavilion, as a customer, a demonic beast hunter is a vital source of income. Demonic beast hunters spend each day in danger. There was no need to talk about the bruises and cuts which were daily occurrences. When they entered and exited the boundless forest, pills for detoxification and recovery were essential necessities. Therefore these demonic beast hunters were a critical source of revenue for the Ye family. If this brawny man died at the Fragrant Medicine Pavilion, it would be a tremendous blow to the prestige of the Ye family among the demonic beast hunters. Some competitors might even take the opportunity to bring down the Fragrant Medicine Pavilion. The loss would be immeasurable. After thinking thoroughly, Ye Yuan had no choice but to stand out and rectify Qian Miao's misdiagnosis. Ye Yuan had yet to say anything. Lu Yi, who was by his side already, could not endure it. She pouted and said to Qian Miao, "Young master isn't saying rubbish. He definitely has a reason for it." Ye Yuan glanced at Lu Yi somewhat surprised, and thought in his heart, this little girl actually trusted him that much. His predecessor had his fair share of teasing her in the past, and yet even with such moral caliber, Lu Yi actually believed him. Trust was trust, but Ye Yuan also knew Lu Yi's words just raised the difficulty of things. An expert such as Qian Miao was not to be offended. Not to mention, these two juniors repeatedly questioned his medical skills. Indeed, Qian Miao's expression sunk further. He then said in a low voice, "Little lass who does not know the immensity of heaven and earth, why don't you try to explain how I'm harming people? For a poison from a seven evils flowing cloud python, if Ye Hang were here, this would be how he treats it." Just the two of you juniors still wet behind the ears actually dared to question my prescription. If you don't explain yourselves today, just wait for a beating. Although Qian Miao normally held his nose high up in the air, he actually never used any underhanded means to deal with people. Nobody in the Ye family dares to offend him either. But today, these two youths caused such a ruckus that he could not take a step back anymore. If he does not demonstrate his prestige and authority, there would be no place left for him in the Ye family. The brawny man never expected such a situation to happen either. He stood there stunned, not knowing what to do. Why did they start to fight among themselves? While Qian Miao's prestige cannot be compared with Ye Hang, it was still well established. Even within the entire Fragrant Medicine Pavilion, he can be considered as a master. At one side stood a renowned master, while at the other side was a punk who was still wet behind his ears. Even a fool knew who to trust. The brawny man initially did not know who this youth was, but after Xianmiao's fiery remarks, he came to a realization. Was this youth that incompetent son of Master Ye? As a demonic beast hunter, he naturally would not be ignorant of events happening in the capital. The fame of this young master was likely even greater than Master Qian. A wastrel like him actually dared to question Master Qian's diagnosis. Could it be that this punk was bored to death and decided to come and harm my life? Thinking about this, the brawny man suddenly became furious. He had never messed with anyone and yet was nearly harmed for no reason. This brat had such a wicked heart at a young age. This brother, Master Qian, is currently treating me. Please don't interfere, the brawny man said in a low voice. Although his words were polite, it was clear the intention was to chase them away. If the Ye family were not a power he did not dare to offend, his words would definitely not be this courteous. Hey, this warrior, I would have to trouble you to wait a moment. I, Xianmiao, spent my entire life immersed in the Dao of medicinal pills. Having treated countless mortals and martial artists, have never been maligned as someone who harms people. Ye Yuan, you have to say today, how am I harming him? Xianmiao's stubborn temper flared up. He was bent on teaching Ye Yuan a lesson before dismissing the matter. Master Qian, the poison in this one's body would become dangerous if it's delayed any longer. Master, please don't be angry and help me purge the poison first. They are merely two ignorant youths casually rambling. The brawny man did not expect Master Qian to take things seriously, so he could only try to persuade the latter. However, Xianmiao waved his hands indifferently, saying, "Relax, it wouldn't take much time. This old man has a certain level of confidence in dealing with this poison and wouldn't let you die. If this matter isn't clarified today, in the future, how will this old man have the face to sit here and make diagnoses?" Having said this, he then turned to Ye Yuan and questioned the young master with a black face, "Why don't you say it? If you can't explain yourself, then don't accuse me of bullying you with my seniority and complain about it to your father." Ye Yuan stood at the side without a word. Only when Xianmiao started questioning that he opened his mouth and replied. The poison this warrior was inflicted with did not come from the seven evils flowing cloud python. Utter nonsense. My two companions lost their lives at its fangs. I myself nearly couldn't make it back. Don't tell me I identified it wrongly. Ignorant brat, I have no grudges with you, but why do you want me dead? The warrior interjected before Ye Yuan could finish speaking. Ha ha ha. Xianmiao laughed so hard until tears nearly fell before saying, "Did you hear that? Completely ignorant. Naughty brat, get lost quickly. If you continue to cause trouble, I will call for someone to drive you out." Xianmiao was able to identify the poison the warrior was inflicted with at a glance. That by itself was already convincing enough. Furthermore, the warrior escaped from the fangs of the python. How could he have identified the beast wrongly? Demonic beast hunters dealt with demonic beasts regularly. One could say that apart from own family, they were most familiar with demonic beasts, which further lowered the likelihood of identifying them wrongly. Get lost quickly. Don't delay Master Qian from diagnosing us. This mischievous child is actually ruining his father's business. Truly hopeless. If I actually gave birth to a son like this, I would have long beaten him into a paste with a stick. At this time, those around watching a good show could not keep quiet any longer. Believing this was a farce orchestrated by Ye Yuan, they started chasing him away with words. At that moment, Louis R no longer had the confidence from before. With a timid expression, she pulled the corner of Ye Yuan's sleeve. However, she was not retreating. Instead, she took a step forward, standing right in front of Ye Yuan. She was actually afraid these people would become violent and harm Ye Yuan. Yuan's heart was touched, but he shook his head before replying calmly, "What you saw with your own eyes might not be what you thought it was. The poison this warriors inflicted with actually was not from a seven evils flowing cloud python, but instead, it was a poison from a seven-colored flowing cloud python. You are clueless about what we are talking about. What seven-colored flowing cloud python? I've never even heard of such a thing. Do you think that by fabricating a demonic beast, you can deceive us?" Xianxia was considered an accomplished alchemist in the state of Qin. Thus, he indeed had researched demonic beasts before. As for the seven-colored flowing cloud python, he had never even heard of such a thing. If even he had never heard of it before, forget about Yuan, who was an ignorant and incompetent brat. "Young Master Ye, you aren't just insulting Master Qian and me, you are insulting all of us demonic beast hunters. We demonic beast hunters spend all of our time fighting for our livelihood under the demonic claws of those demonic beasts. I've been a demonic beast hunter for so many years, yet I've never heard of the seven-colored flowing cloud python before." At this point, the brawny-looking man felt even more confident that Yuan was causing trouble out of nothing. Yuan was plotting to harm his life. Thus, his words were no longer courteous and instead wanted to expose Yuan's ulterior motives. Small fries had small fries' way of living. Although the brawny-looking man might appear unrefined most of the time, in reality, he was sharp in some ways. He was still relying on Xianxia to save his life, and so, in order to not offend Xianxia, he tied Xianxia and him together. Additionally, he brought out the group of demonic beast hunters, all to make Yuan retreat in the face of difficulties. Even if Yuan does not retreat in the face of the overwhelming odds, the Ye family would know better than to offend the entire group of demonic beast hunters. Many of those who came here were demonic beast hunters. After hearing his words, the scene became chaotic immediately. "That's right. What seven-colored flowing cloud python? Never heard of it. This affluent second generation really lost face for Grandmaster yet. It looks like the Ye family won't be able to compete with the Drunken Star Manor, and its glory will end with this generation. What bullshit seven-colored flowing cloud python? I've been around the Endless Forest for almost 30 years, and I've never even heard of such a demonic beast. Enough, enough. I think we all better go over to the Drunken Star Manor." A perfectly fine fragrant medicine pavilion befouled by an affluent second generation. Yuan remained standing still silently, which was unthinkable to Xianxia who knew him well. If it happened in the past, this punk Yuan would have exploded long ago. Yet now, he was behaving like nothing's happening, as if those patients were not scolding him. However, Yuan had thoroughly swept away any face he had today. No matter from which perspective one looked at, Xianxia stood at the side of reason, so he had nothing to fear. Best to let this brat suffer some hardship. Otherwise, if things continue like this, the family business carved out by old Ye would sooner or later be destroyed by this brat's hands. Yuan's gaze slowly turned towards the noisy crowd and swept his gaze over those who were happily making the most noise. Initially, those people were very pleased, but without knowing why, those who crossed sights with Yuan felt like their entire person fell into an ice cellar. Yuan's gaze finally fixed onto the face of the person who first incited everyone to go to the Drunken Star Manor. That man was just in the midst of snickering to himself when all of a sudden, he felt a piercing cold killing intent lock onto him. His facial expression froze, feeling indescribable eeriness. He was a very keen and capable middle-aged man, as well as a demonic beast hunter himself. Those familiar with him knew him as Luan, but nobody knew that he was actually a spy placed among the demonic beast hunters by the Drunken Star Manor. Anytime something valuable was discovered in the Endless Forest, he would kill and rob that person, and then passed it over to Drunken Star Manor. This Drunken Star Manor was precisely the Fragrant Medicine Pavilion's biggest competitor in the state of Qin. All of a sudden, the initially noisy hall turned silent, the racket akin to a waterfall was being cut in half and stopped abruptly. For a moment, the hall was so quiet that one could even hear a pin drop. The silence was terrifyingly oppressive. Lewin was stared at by Yayuan that he had goosebumps all over his body. He thought to himself, "What's going on? This punk, Yayuan, clearly only has the power of a first-level Essence G realm. A person at the 8th level Essence G realm like him could crush someone like Yayuan to death with a single hand. So why would he experience such terrifying oppression where he did not even dare to breathe loudly, the feeling of facing a terrifying opponent? Yayuan's strength was evident at a glance. Apart from a few mortals in the hall, virtually everyone was able to see his cultivation realm with a glance. A punk who was weak to the extreme, how could he possibly create such a sense of oppression? Lewin felt that this was definitely a hallucination, yet the silent hall constantly reminded him that it was not. The oppressive feeling made him feel extremely uncomfortable, making him feel like he absolutely had to dispel the current state. An 8th level Essence G realm being oppressed by a 1st level Essence G realm till he could not speak. What an utter joke. Lewin decided to tear apart this joke. Gathering a breath of true essence, he was just about to open his mouth when Yayuan's gaze moved away from his body. Yayuan's words were interrupted halfway by a sound. The crowd turned towards the source of the sound and discovered that it was by Lewin. At that moment, he was spraying a mouthful of blood far away, splattering on quite a few people. He forcefully gathered a breath of true essence to talk, and yet Yayuan just happened to withdraw the pressure exerted onto his body, which made his chest feel like it was heavily struck by a sledgehammer. Plus his body was originally carrying some injuries, so he directly sprayed out a mouthful of old blood, and became even more heavily injured right now. "Young master, this person seemed to be heavily injured. Why not let Master Qian treat him first?" Luiyar pulled on Yayuan's sleeve and said pitifully. Yayuan's face briefly revealed an astonished expression, but he was actually full of joy in his heart. He thought to himself that this little lass was intelligent, to actually have such a remarkable follow-up. Killing a chicken with a butcher's knife. It might look serious, but in reality, this warrior only has some light internal injuries. Our fragrant medicine pavilion's heart-protecting pill is renowned far and wide. Just let him consume one, and it will do. Yayuan had a radiant smile on his face while he looked at Lewin. Luiyar saw that Lewin looked horrifying, so she did not wait for Yayuan orders, and immediately left to fetch the medicine. But this deeply frightened Lewin. And no need. There are still so many people queuing up in front of me. See, cutting isn't very nice, Lewin said with guilt. That won't do. I know you don't trust me, but are you telling me that you can't trust our fragrant medicine pavilion's reputation? I believe everyone is aware of the reputation of our heart-protecting pill. Using it to treat your injuries will definitely work, Yayuan said, full of concern. As he finished, even Jian Miao nodded and said, "That's right. This time around, little Yuan isn't messing around. Even though your injuries aren't severe, it wouldn't be good if it continues to deteriorate. Using a heart-protecting pill to treat your injuries is perfect." In reality, Yayuan's gaze just now stopped on quite a few people. It was just that it paused on Luan's body just slightly longer. The others did not feel what he felt, so they did not discover anything amiss with Lewin. Right now, Yayuan seemed to be full of concern for Lewin. Even though nobody knew what medicine he was selling in his gourd, there was nothing wrong with saving people. In the time it took to have this conversation, Luiyar already rushed back like a gust of wind with a heart-protecting pill. "Young master, here." Luiyar gave it to Yayuan like she wanted to claim credit for it. Turning around, Yayuan received the medicinal pill. Petting Luiyar's head, he smiled and said, "It was hard on you." "Not at all." Luiyar shook her head vigorously. Right now, Yayuan had his back turned towards the crowd, and nobody, not even Luiyar, noticed his hand movements. If one were to pay attention to Ye Yuan's hand that was holding the medicinal pill, one would discover that the medicinal pill was not being held in his hand, but instead, hovering on top of his palm. While at the same time, Ye Yuan's fingers were moving at a very high frequency. After talking with Louis R., Ye Yuan turned around, walked in front of Luan and passed the medicine pill to him. Here, swallow it quickly. Receiving the hard protecting pill, Luan's face changed color several times. Did this brat really discover something? No matter what, this brat isn't some saint, so why would he suddenly be concerned about others? Just as Luan was feeling nervous and uneasy, his eyes swept around until they were on Xianxia, who was by the side. Immediately, he went up and said righteously, "Master Qian, it's not me who's narrow-minded, but rather, young Master Ye, whose reputation isn't that good. Honestly speaking, I worry about this medicinal pill. Master Qian, please make the decision for me." When he said this, everyone all nodded in agreement. But Louis R. could not stand it. "You are such an ungrateful person. Our family's young master is filled with good intentions to save you, yet you are suspecting him. Humph. Everybody knows what kind of person your young master is. Is there anything wrong with suspecting him?" Right now, Luan also became resolute and refused to eat it. Xianxia looked at Ye Yuan and discovered that Ye Yuan was very calm and did not get angry because of this, making him even more suspicious. Looking once more at the medicinal pill in Luan's hands, he took it and scrutinized it, even sniffing it before saying, "This is indeed our heart-protecting pill without anything inappropriate." Furthermore, this particular heart-protecting pill's medicinal fragrance is overflowing. Clearly, its quality is even greater than the average ones. I am not forcing you to eat this heart-protecting pill, but your injuries right now aren't light. If you are not careful, it might affect your cultivation in the future. I advise you to just take it. Luan really became confused this time. Could it be that he was really overthinking it? Supposedly, Ye Yuan, this brat had just escaped death. Did he really have a change in nature ever since? Qianxia, this old fellow, is an honorable man, so he can't possibly be cheating me. Thinking up to this point, Luan gave thanks and swallowed the heart-protecting pill in one go. When the medicinal pill reached his abdomen, Luan felt a refreshing wave. It was as if his entire body relaxed quite a bit. The medicine's efficacy was pretty good. From the looks of it, this punk Ye Yuan really had a change in personality. To actually give him a high-grade heart-protecting pill. At this moment, Luan felt he gauged the heart of a gentleman with one's own mean measure. "This warrior, how are you feeling?" Ye Yuan asked, his face beaming with a smile. Luan cupped his hands and replied with gratitude, "Thank you, young master Ye. This one was too rash. I hope you can overlook my transgression. However, let's return to the topic at hand. Forgive me for being ignorant, but I've never heard before of a demonic beast called seven-colored flowing cloud python." Luan did not overlook his mission and immediately dragged the topic back after he recovered. After the disturbance, everyone's focus was diverted and forgot all about that matter. Now that Luan brought it up again, everyone came to a realization and once again looked towards Ye Yuan with contempt in their eyes. Ye Yuan smiled lightly and said, "Actually, a seven-colored flowing cloud python is a mutation of a seven evils flowing cloud python. It's just that a seven evils flowing cloud python is more common, while a seven-colored flowing cloud python is much rarer. Snakes belong to the yin attribute. Thus, the majority of snake species possesses yin poison. However, there is a minority which mutated to have yang attribute. It happens to be that the one you encountered was this. Appearance-wise, a seven-colored flowing cloud python doesn't differ much from a seven evils flowing cloud python. However, it's known as the seven-colored flowing cloud python because there's a seven-colored flower on its 7 inches thick skin. This demonic beast has a huge frame. When this warrior was facing it, there was no way of spotting that seven-colored flower, Naturally, this means that he couldn't differentiate between a 7-colored flowing cloud python and 7 evils flowing cloud python. It's just that these two demonic beasts, one possesses yin poison while the other yang poison. If we used the prescription intended for yin poison to detoxify yang poison, we would actually be harming this warrior. Yaoyuan finished talking while Xianmiao started frowning. What Yaoyuan said sounded plausible, with virtually no flaws. If this brawny man were genuinely suffering from a yang poison, then this treatment method would really harm him. However, he could not comprehend how Yaoyuan came up with this diagnosis. How could Yaoyuan possibly know a demonic beast that he himself had never even heard of before? Even if he knew about this demonic beast, how had he found out the poison inflicted on this brawny man was different from the venom of 7 evils flowing cloud python? Humph. Even if it existed, this so-called 7-colored flowing cloud python that you spoke of, why are the symptoms of his poisoning exactly the same as the 7 evils flowing cloud python? Xianmiao asked coldly. Yaoyuan smiled and replied, "What's so unusual about that? A 7-colored flowing cloud python and a 7 evils flowing cloud python both came from a common ancestor. Naturally, after being poisoned, the symptoms are almost similar, but not the same. This warrior, try pressing down on the spot 7 inches below your armpit." The brawny man was at a loss on what he should do. Seeing Xianmiao nodded his head, he then measured the mentioned range of 7 inches below his armpit and pressed down the spot. There was not much force, but a pained expression immediately appeared on his face. Following which, a mouthful of blood sprayed out. As the blood splattered on the ground, a foul stench assaulted their noses. Seeing how it made people feel dizzy, it was clear it contained a deadly poison. This. Xianmiao was astonished. 7 evils flowing cloud python's poison was not uncommon, hence, he was able to identify it after a brief diagnosis. But according to what he knew, 7 evils flowing cloud python's poison would absolutely not have such a situation occur. Although a 7 evils flowing cloud python's poison is potent, it is far from being this overbearing. Yaoyuan frowned slightly and ordered the attendants, "Men, come and clean this place." If it were in the past, most likely no one would heed his order. But looking at the current situation happening in front of their eyes, 2 servants immediately came forth and started cleaning. These 2 servants were clearly used to doing such things. Soon enough, no sign of blood could be seen on the ground. Xianmiao's facial expression kept changing before finally taking in a deep breath and said, "Unner, in your opinion, how should the 7-colored flowing cloud python's poison be treated?" By saying this, it was equivalent to acknowledging his misdiagnosis earlier. It was just that in front of so many people, there was naturally no way he would apologize to a junior. Hence, his words were more subtle with implicit meaning. Furthermore, the way he addressed Yaoyuan also had changed. Calling him with Unner seemed much intimate now. Of course, with his status, Xianmiao could certainly address him as Unner. Even so, these words caused a stir in the crowd. Yin poison has to be treated with yang means. Yang poison naturally has to be treated with yin means. Uncle Qian has a deep understanding towards medicines. The prescription just now didn't actually have major mistakes. You just have to swap yang attribute medicines with yin attribute ones. That will do. Green flow grass and vermilion soul sand are neutral medicines. But Iron Wind Eagle belongs under yang attribute. Furthermore, eagle subdue snake. If it were the 7 evils flowing cloud python's poison, this medicine would be the best. Right now, we just have to swap the Iron Wind Eagle's inner core with a Lightning Ferret's inner core, and that should solve this problem. A 7-colored flowing cloud python's poison burns more fiercely. So it is best to add some extreme yin datira. Yaoyuan talked as if he already had a well-thought-out plan. But most importantly, everything he said was reasonable and well-founded. As long as the person understood medicine, there would be no way to refute his words at all. Lu Er looked at the young master and felt that he was simply too handsome today. "Moss Master Qian, is it true what he just said?" the brawny man asked hesitatingly. Qian Miao took one look at the brawny man, shook his head with a bitter smile and said, "Honestly, even I'm not so sure now. But looking at the poisonous blood you spat out just now, what you are inflicted with, indeed, doesn't look like a seven evils flowing cloud python's poison. Buletin, but will the method he said work? What if I die from his treatment?" It was not that the brawny man did not have faith in the fragrant medicine pavilion. It was just Ye Yuan's former reputation was too rotten. This prejudice left him unable to trust Ye Yuan at all. His body's poison as diagnosed by Ye Yuan was only the latter's claim. Nobody could determine whether it's real or bogus. How could he be confident? Qian Miao forced a smile and said, "I don't know either. But I feel that his method is worth a shot. What do you think? What are you still standing there for? Quickly grab the materials. Do you want the patient to die from the poison?" At this moment, a thunderous voice roared in everyone's ears. The crowd looked toward the door and saw a rough-looking man walked in swiftly. "Understood, family head." The attendant standing beside Qian Miao saw who it was and immediately responded and left. That man was Ye Hang. "Father." "Family head." Ye Yuan and Qian Miao greeted Ye Hang at the same time. Ye Hang stopped in front of Ye Yuan and nodded his head lightly. With approval and relief being apparent in his eyes, Ye Hang said, "Looks like your personality changed for real this time. To have finished reading all those books I left you during this period, you really did diligently study the Dao of Alchemy. Not bad." Without waiting for Ye Yuan's reply, he turned and said to the brawny man, "Little brother, my son is right. You are truly inflicted with a seven-colored flowing cloud python's poison and not a seven evils flowing cloud python's poison. This type of demonic beast is extremely uncommon, which led to old Qian being unable to identify it. I apologize for that. However, the prescription my son issued isn't wrong either. Just drink it and see. If something happened, my fragrant medicine pavilion would take full responsibility. What do you think?" Ye Hang had a very distinguished identity in the entire state of Qin. Usually, it was impossible to see him here, let alone request for him to treat you. Today, he personally guaranteed it. What reason was there left for the brawny man to hesitate? Looks like even though the Ye family's young master might be incompetent, it was in no way as exaggerated as the rumors outside. At least he had some real capabilities. In a courtyard at the fragrant medicine pavilion, Ye Hang was currently glaring at Ye Yuan. "Stinky brat, tell me honestly, how did you identify it?" Ye Yuan looked helplessly at his father and replied, "A wild guess. Humph. I was nearly hoodwinked by you yesterday. Looks like you really are different than in the past. What seven-colored flowing cloud python? I've never heard of it before this too. Just now, even if I personally diagnosed him, I'm afraid the results would be the same as with old Qian." Thinking of it now, Ye Hang was a little fearful after that episode. If it was not for his son's stroke of genius, the golden signboard of the fragrant medicine pavilion would be ruined today. That brawny-looking man already drank the medicine, and he got better. He was eternally grateful to the fragrant medicine pavilion and Ye Yuan. What was supposed to be a disaster became a good thing because of the anomaly, Ye Yuan. In fact, what could be foreseen after today was that the prestige of the fragrant medicine pavilion would soar even higher among the demonic beast hunters. The benefits involved would be immense. What? Even Lord Father doesn't know about this. I thought that with your attainments in the alchemy Dao, treating this sort of poison would be a piece of cake. Ye Yuan pretended to be surprised. A piece of cake. He. Naturally, within this tiny state of Qin, I have some status. But outside of the state of Qin, I, your father, am nothing. What alchemy grandmaster? It's merely just crossing the threshold of the great path of alchemy. The state of Qin is a well, and I am a frog in that well. It's just that I am a slightly larger frog. There are too many things I don't understand. Ye Hang suddenly started to mock himself, looking a little desolate, which made Ye Yuan somewhat surprised. In his predecessor's memory, his father, Ye Hang, was a man of indomitable spirit, as if nothing could bring him down. He had never seen his father reveal such an expression before. Ye Yuan could feel that Ye Hang displayed the side of him because he felt that his son had grown up and was more sensible now. So he felt like a heavy load had lifted off his shoulders, which was why his tightly wound nerves finally relaxed. Ye Yuan felt touched in his heart. His father most likely had his heart crushed over these years for his son. It was just that he never showed it in front of his son. Ye Yuan once again thought of his past life's father, xianxia, and felt a multitude of feelings surge up. He could not bear to mock Ye Hang anymore, so he opened his mouth and said, "Father, I know what you want to ask. Actually, I also don't know what's going on. This time around when I got poisoned and was on the verge of death, I met an expert in a dream. He imparted to me both martial and alchemy techniques which were exceedingly profound. Initially, I thought it was just a dream, but after waking up, I discovered that I remembered clearly what happened in the dream. Furthermore, I could completely do it in reality. If it wasn't for that expert, with father's means, you probably wouldn't see me again." Ye Yuan could not possibly tell Ye Hang that his son's body had already been occupied by another soul. So he had no choice but to fabricate a white lie which was close to the truth. Hearing Ye Yuan's words, Ye Hang could not help but become ecstatic. To think an expert took fancy of his son and imparted profound techniques in his dreams. This was a completely inconceivable thought for him. With such an expert for a master, the massive boulder that had been pressing on Ye Hang's heart was finally lifted. That expert, did he say who he was? He saved my son's life. As a father, I've got to at least thank him. But Ye Yuan shook his head and said, "That expert didn't reveal his name, neither did he say why he saved me. He just said to properly comprehend the skills he imparted to me. When the time comes, he will naturally look for me again. So that's the case. Then the next time you see him, you must definitely give thanks to him on father's behalf," Ye Hang said with regret. Ye Yuan smiled and said, "Of course. Father, I still have some matters on hand, so I will take my leave first." A moment later, Ye Yuan arrived at the fragrant medicine pavilion once more and said to the shopkeeper, "In a while, if someone looks for me, let him come to the manor at the east of the city. Additionally, here is a prescription. Help me prepare the medicines." Presently, Luan was quite pleased with himself, while also feeling a little dejected. He was pleased because Ye Yuan, that brat, was indeed a fool. To actually give a high-grade heart-protecting pill to someone with both hands. That heart-protecting pill's effects seemed to be exceptionally good. Currently, not only were his injuries healed, there was even a faint sign of breaking through after his injuries recovered. He had already been stuck at the 8th level xianxia realm for many years, and yet he could never seem to touch the threshold of the 9th level. Luan was prepared to first temporarily put aside his duties for the Drunken Star Manor so that he could attempt to impact through the 9th level xianxia realm with full force. What made him dejected was that Drunken Star Manor's scheme to redirect the troubled waters had failed. And it actually failed due to a silk pants. No matter how Luan thought of the incident, he just could not figure out how his silk pants was able to identify and treat a poison which even the Manor Lord of the Drunken Star Manor, Wan Donghai, could not handle. This Wan Donghai was in existence on the same level as Ye Hang. His attainments in the alchemy Dao even faintly surpassed Ye Hang. How could the ignorant and incompetent son of Ye Hang possibly have survived through that situation? And yet, the situation happened like that right under his eyes. Currently, Luan had a headache thinking about how he should account to the Manor Lord. Therefore, Luan did not even believe that the brawny-looking man was treated by Ye Yuan, but instead, it was Ye Hang who took action behind the scene. Ye Yuan was just a chess piece which Ye Hang pushed out into the open. Looks like this Ye Hang is very shrewd. When I return, I have to warn the Manor Lord to be on guard. While Luan was thinking as he walked, he suddenly discovered something wrong. The area underneath his nostrils was a little wet. Reaching out to touch it, he jumped in fright when he saw that his hands were covered in fresh blood. Overly heating? What kind of joke was this? He was an 8th level Essence Chi realm martial artist. How could he possibly have a nosebleed because his body was heating? Somehow, he suddenly recalled Ye Yuan's sincere smiling face, and he shuddered uncontrollably. Immediately, he shook his head and rejected that thought. He, Luan, was not some rookie. Even though he was not at a high level like xianxia, he was still capable of identifying between a fake and a genuine medicine. That medicinal pill was absolutely a heart-protecting pill. Furthermore, it was a high-grade heart-protecting pill. Definitely too heaty. Luan consoled himself in this manner, but he quickly discovered that he was too naive. Not long after, blood then flowed from his 2 eyes, followed by his ears, and finally, he directly coughed up a large mouthful of blood. His internal organs felt like it caught fire, and his viscera was ablaze right now. At this moment, he could confirm that he was indeed poisoned. Luan could also be considered someone who frequently walked along the borders of life and death. But the more so, the more he was terrified of dying. Right now, his entire person felt a chill as if frozen. He had never experienced the despair he was feeling right now even back when he faced powerful demonic beasts. At this moment, Luan only had one thought, which was to survive. He sprinted desperately towards the fragrant medicine pavilion. There was not much time left for him. The fragrant medicine pavilion's shopkeeper was shocked by this person bleeding from his 7 orifices. He did not care about anything and just grabbed onto his sleeve after entering, requesting to meet young Master Ye. The shopkeeper was taken aback and did not react in time. Suddenly, he recalled what the young master instructed before leaving, so he told the address to this blood-covered person in front of him. After that person left, the shopkeeper was a little puzzled. This person is really weird. Already like that, and yet he didn't look for Master Qian, but young master instead. For what? Unless young master knows how to treat diseases. Everyone, including initially Luan, thought that the brawny-looking man being saved today could not possibly have anything to do with Ye Yuan. In the alchemy room at the east side of Ye Hang's manor, Luiyar stared wide-eyed, amazed at the smooth black medicinal pill in Ye Yuan's hands. What? Young master, when did you become so amazing? Ye Yuan smiled and pinched Luiyar's delicate pink nose. He then grumpily replied, "Since when your young master isn't amazing?" Originally intended as a joke, who knew Luiyar actually seriously pondered a while before nodding. Oh, in the past, people always talked bad about young master. I don't know why, but I've always thought of young master as a good person. It's just that now young master is even more impressive. Right, what does this pill do? One day after transmigrating, Luiyar already became the closest person to Ye Yuan. Without hiding anything, Ye Yuan explained, "It's poison, a very potent one." Luiyar seemingly frightened by this and asked, why did young master refine something like this?" Ye Yuan smiled and said, "Naturally for a person to eat." Luiyar mused over this explanation, before replying with a straight face, "I understand. Young master definitely refined this poison for bad guys to eat." Ye Yuan laughed out loud and said, "Let's go. The bad guy is almost here. We will wait for him in the parlor." The two just stepped into the parlor, and a servant came to report that a person with a bloodied face was at the front entrance of the manor seeking for an audience. Ye Yuan commanded him to bring that person over. Momentarily, the servant brought a pitiful-looking Luan to the parlor. Upon seeing Ye Yuan, Luan sprinted over. Hugging Ye Yuan's leg and crying, he said, "Young Master Ye, I beg you to be magnanimous and save me, please. We don't have any grudges between us. Why do you want to put me to death?" Ye Yuan gave a look of disdain and then sent Luan flying with a kick before squatting down and said, "Don't have any grudges. Do you really take me for a fool? No matter how many heart-protecting pills my Ye family has, we wouldn't take it out to feed dogs. Make your choice now. Do you want to confess in exchange for the antidote or die due to the poison?" Even after being sent flying with a kick, Luan did not have any complaints and nearly tripped over himself while crawling back. Only this time he did not dare to hug Ye Yuan's legs again. However, Ye Yuan was just at the first level Essence G realm. Even if the kick was packed with true essence, it was unable to cause any substantial harm to Luan. As to the risk for Luan retaliating like a desperate dog leaping over a wall, Ye Yuan was not concerned at all. That was because Luan's true essence scattered all over in his body, and he was unable to gather them together. "Young Master Ye, I truly don't know what you meant by that. I only came to Fragrant Medicine Pavilion to get treated. Even if I'd offended you, it isn't deserving of death. I am only a small figure. I beg of you, young Master Ye, just treat me like a fart and let me go," Luan said as he cried without even trying to maintain his dignity. Ye Yuan did not speak and only looked at Luan's alarmed face until the latter became flustered. At this point, Luan still held on to one last trace of possibility that Ye Yuan's wastrel disease struck and that this was a practical joke. He hoped that by letting go of his dignity, he could coax Ye Yuan into giving him the antidote. If people found out about his shady identity, he would be hunted down by demonic beast hunters. However, after Ye Yuan stared at him for a long time with that same gaze, Luan's heart hit rock bottom. Ye Yuan looked at Luan and suddenly smiled. A smile which made his heart went cold. "Yo, young Master Ye. Ha ha ha. It's fine if you don't want to talk, I have plenty of time, but you don't. Right now, do you feel your organs burning up, and your entire body as if it's about to ablaze? This is merely the beginning. After a while, your skin wouldn't be able to withstand it and start to crack open, bit by bit. Eventually, your entire body will go pop and explode like a watermelon." As Ye Yuan spoke, he even made an explosion gesture with his hands. Luan's entire body quaked as if following Ye Yuan's hand movements and exploded. At this point, Luan knew he was out of luck. Ye Yuan definitely saw through something. Analyzing everything up to this point, Luan's heart swiftly calmed down. This was an ability developed through countless years of hunting demonic beasts. He became an extraordinarily sinister and cunning person. His mind calculated everything, and a scheme developed. It was already impossible to return to the past with the situation that was happening right now. Luan decided to go all out. As long as he managed to swindle the antidote from Ye Yuan's hands, he would immediately kill Ye Yuan and this little girl before leaving for a distant place. Luan was a decisive man. Now that the scheme was in place, there was no need to delay things any longer. Naturally, he would not reveal his inner thoughts. Instead, he continued to maintain a pitiful and helpless appearance in order to deceive Ye Yuan. Luan repeatedly kowtowed and babbled nonstop. "Young Master Ye, I was wrong. I truly know I was wrong. I can't hide anything from your keen sight. I'm willing to tell young Master Ye everything. I only beg young Master Ye to spare my worthless life." Ye Yuan looked as if he was delighted with Luan's performance. He smiled and said, "That will depend on whether the information you are going to reveal is valuable or not. If it is, this young master naturally will not make things difficult for a small fry like you." Luan became thrilled upon hearing this. He thought to himself, this punk is indeed a pampered child, baited with just a little bit of honey. Luan no longer hesitated and spilled everything out. The truth did not deviate much from Ye Yuan's conjecture. That brawny man initially went to several medicinal pill stores. Occasionally, there would be physicians who could recognize the 7 evils flowing cloud python's poison. But they were helpless against it. Do not look down on Xianmiao just because he was nothing in front of Ye Yuan. When put in the entire Qin country, he was a top-ranked individual. He could identify and treat the 7 evils flowing cloud python's poison, but this does not mean that others could do the same. Luckily they could not handle it, otherwise, the brawny man would have long succumbed to the poison. Left without any choice, the brawny man then went to the Drunken Star Manor first. Coincidentally, the Drunken Star Manor's manor lord, Wan Donghai, happened to be there and saw the brawny man. The diagnosis of a Drunken Star Manor's physician was actually the same as Xianmiao's. However, Wan Donghai saw that something was not quite right, and requested the brawny man to seek a more capable expert. Within the state of Qin, other than the Drunken Star Manor, there was only the Fragrant Medicine Pavilion. What could the brawny man do, other than to go try his luck at the Fragrant Medicine Pavilion? Wan Donghai could feel that something was wrong, but like Ye Hang, he was helpless against the poison. Your enemy would be the person who understood you the most. Wan Donghai was confident that Ye Hang could not neutralize this poison. Hence, he sent Luan to blend with the crowd and wait for an opportunity to fan the flames in order to ruin the Fragrant Medicine Pavilion's reputation. If the situation went out of control, it would be best to incite the demonic beast hunters to smash up the Fragrant Medicine Pavilion. That way, even if the Fragrant Medicine Pavilion was not destroyed, it would result in a considerable loss of reputation, leaving them unable to compete with the Drunken Star Manor any longer. Luan, who was wounded earlier, had just returned to the capital of the state of Qin. Furthermore, he was quick-witted, which made him the most suitable candidate. Initially, everything had been going along as planned by Wan Donghai. But who knew halfway through, something unexpected would happen. Ye Yuan unexpectedly actually managed to resolve this poison, leaving Luan unable to do anything. He. It really was Wan Donghai. What a great trick to manipulate this incident. Ye Yuan smiled coldly. This Wan Donghai had always viewed Ye Yuan's father as an enemy. Both were alchemy grandmaster with prominent status within the state. Yet, Wan Donghai was an insidious, unscrupulous person, completely different than Ye Hang. Ye Yuan was naturally familiar with this Wan Donghai. Although his predecessor was far from being a match for Wan Donghai, his son Wan Yuan was his nemesis at the Danwu Academy. Naturally, although they are rivals, it was actually Wan Yuan one-sidedly bullying Ye Yuan. Ye Yuan thoroughly could not retaliate at all. Although Wan Yuan was also another silk pants like him, he was still outstanding among the students at the Danwu Academy. Apart from reaching the 6th level Essence G realm, he even became an alchemy apprentice of the Dao of Alchemy. Even among the talents in the Danwu Academy, Wan Yuan was an exceptional genius who was well favored. In comparison, Ye Yuan was not even fit to hold his shoes up. In fact, the matter regarding Ye Yuan's poisoning, after analyzing his predecessor's memories, there was an 80% likelihood that Wan Yuan being the mastermind behind the incident. Good. Excellent. The old grievances have yet to fade, and new grudges were formed already. This father and son peer from the Wan family. This feud, we will never reconcile. Ye Yuan thought and laughed coldly in his heart. Yo, young master, yeah, I've said what I should say, as well as what I shouldn't have. Don't you think? Luan said weakly. Just now, he even revealed that he was a spy for the Drunken Star Manor, all just to obtain Ye Yuan's trust and swindle that antidote from him. Feeling satisfied, Ye Yuan nodded. Taking out the newly refined poison pill, he threw it to Luan and said, "Not bad. You performed well. This antidote is your reward." Luan received the pill and was feeling elated. Without even being skeptical, he swallowed it and immediately meditated to absorb the medicinal effects. Indeed, the moment the pill reached his abdomen and was being absorbed, His originally stagnant true essence started circulating immediately. His eyes suddenly snapped open, and he flew forward like a cheetah with clawed hands, moving towards Ye Yuan's throat. "Ah! Young master!" Lu Er at the side gave a shrill scream. Without even thinking, she jumped in front of Ye Yuan. This claw attack was abnormally vicious, bringing with it an imposing aura tempered by the life and death situations he encountered daily as a demonic beast hunter. Against a little rookie like Ye Yuan, it was impossible to fail. And yet, this claw suddenly stopped 3 inches away from Lu Er's throat. Following this, Luan collapsed to the ground and started convulsing, his face distorted in pain. Ye Yuan pulled Lu Er aside from the back. Looking with pity at Luan, who was on the ground, he smiled coldly and said, "Disasters from the heavens can be withstood, but the evil we bring upon ourselves is the hardest to bear. If you didn't have any devious ideas, this heart-inch fissure poison wouldn't activate this early. Yet, because you had vicious thoughts, you have to suffer more." "Why?" Luan twitched as he squeezed out the word between his teeth. Ye Yuan smiled lightly and said, "You thought the heart-protecting pill I gave you back at the Fragrant Medicine Pavilion was actually poison. In reality, that was really a heart-protecting pill. It's just that the medicinal pill had been refined several times. Consequently, the medicinal effects became several times more violent. You are bleeding from the 7 orifices and unable to gather true essence was merely some side effects. There was actually no serious problem with your body. Once the medicinal effects passed, not only would you be completely fine, you might have experienced improvement. But the pill you just ate was a real poison pill, the heart-inch fissure pill. Furthermore, the effects are extremely violent. After consuming it, you will suffer from the pain of your intestines rupturing for 6 hours each day. Moreover, each time it happens, it will become even stronger. All the way until you die." Ye Yuan's words clearly reached Luan's ears. This seemed to make him convulsed even more violently. At the Drunken Star Manor, streams of people can be seen busily going in and out. In the manor, a middle-aged man dressed in a traditional outfit appeared very restless and kept pacing around non-stop. Beside him sat a middle-aged man who looked very calm. "Big brother, why isn't there any news from that Luan? Could it be that the brawny-looking man's poison was cured by Yehang?" The one talking was precisely the man pacing around, Wan Dongyang. He was Wan Donghai's brother, an alchemist himself from the same sect. The person sitting down naturally was the manor lord of the Drunken Star Manor, Wan Donghai. But Wan Donghai was composed and said unhurriedly, "Dongyang, remain calm. I am all too clear on Yehang's abilities. It's impossible for him to treat that poison. We just have to sit here and wait for the good news to come." "Aya, big brother, this Fragrant Medicine Pavilion has been competing with us for so many years. Now that we finally have this opportunity, how can we ease the hatred in our hearts if we don't take them down completely?" Wan Dongyang gritted his teeth and said, "Ha ha. Oh Dongyang, you really need to fix that short temper of yours. Otherwise, it will be tough to break through and reach the Alchemist Grandmaster realm." The poison inflicted on that brawny-looking man was very peculiar. If I guessed correctly, it should be poison from the mythical 7-colored flowing cloud python. If it wasn't for the fact that I happened to read a word or two about it from an incomplete book, I'm afraid it would be our Drunken Star Manor who would suffer from this. But since I encountered it, then Yehang deserves to be unlucky. However, it's only being unlucky. It's not realistic to use this to bring down Yehang. At best, this matter would only let us suppress them in the business aspect." Wan Donghai remained unperturbed. Even though Wan Donghai said all that, there was not the slightest bit of unhappiness on Wan Dongyang's face. The step from Alchemy Master to Alchemy Grandmaster might seem simple, but in reality, it was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Otherwise, there would not be so few Alchemy Grandmasters in the entire state of Qin. However, This impatient temper of his was probably not going to change as he asked him patiently, "Big brother, why do I keep feeling that something is wrong? Why don't we send someone down to check on the situation there?" Wan Donghai was afraid that if he acted rashly, he would alert and draw Yahang's attention. Apart from Luan, he did not send anyone else to inquire about the news. But if that side started to fight, they should have long received the news here. Unless there really was an unexpected accident. "All right. You send someone to check it out." After thinking for a moment, Wan Donghai agreed. Wan Donghai was not really worried that something had happened to Luan. After all, he and the drunken Star Manor had no connections on the surface. He was merely a demonic beast hunter. Wan Dongyang acknowledged the instruction and was just about to send someone down when he heard urgent knocking on the door. "Manor Lord, something big is happening. Someone is here to cause trouble." "What?" The door opened from the inside. Wan Donghai said coldly to the shopkeeper, "Who is it? Who is so audacious to actually dare climb on top of our heads? What are all of you doing?" Hearing that someone was causing trouble, Wan Dongyang's hot temper immediately surfaced. The shopkeeper's face turned bitter and said, They didn't really come to cause trouble. It's just to get a treatment." Seeing Wan Donghai's face sank, the shopkeeper hurriedly rectified his words. No, they are using seeking treatment as an excuse to challenge us." "Who is it?" Wan Donghai's patience was almost exhausted. It's that silk pants from the Ye family, Yahang's son, Ye Yuan," the shopkeeper said while trembling. "Just a silk pants scared you until like this. Are you retarded? Do you still want your job as a shopkeeper?" The moment Wan Dongyang heard that it was Ye Yuan, he wanted to tear the shopkeeper apart. "Forget it, let's go out and take a look," Wan Donghai commanded. The three of them went to the lobby and saw a youth sitting in an ostentatious manner where the shopkeeper was supposed to sit. Wan Donghai glared fiercely at the shopkeeper, but right now was not the time to punish him. Just as Wan Donghai was about to deal with Ye Yuan, he glanced sideways only to see Luan, who was like a dead dog on the ground. His heart jumped. Ye Yuan saw Wan Donghai appeared and took his time to get up. He walked in front of him, smiled and said, "Manor Lord Wan, this little nephew came here rather abruptly today. I hope you won't take offense." Wan Donghai's facial muscles twitched a little and forcefully suppressed the impulse to slap Ye Yuan to death with one blow. Forcing out a slightly ugly smile, he said, "Not at all. So it was honorable nephew who came. I was wondering which blind little bastard dared to be so rude in our drunken Star Manor. If honorable nephew wants to come, it's better to notify us beforehand, so that we wouldn't be discourteous." Even though Wan Donghai wanted to gnash his teeth in hatred, he did not want to suffer a loss verbally, and so he scolded Ye Yuan being a little bastard. Everyone knew that the drunken Star Manor and the fragrant medicine pavilion were enemies, but they would still appear to be polite and amiable on the surface. They were all businessmen. If they were to really fight, in the future, who would dare to come and get their illnesses treated? Ye Yuan snickered in his heart at how narrow-minded Wan Donghai was, and yet, he was smiling as he said, "Aw shucks. It's because I was anxious about saving people, and so I had no choice but to intrude. I've long heard that Manor Lord Wan's alchemy deo is #1 in the state of Qin. That was why this little nephew had the idea of coming here to save a life." Hearing what Ye Yuan was saying, Wan Donghai wished he could tear him apart alive. If there were only people from the drunken Star Manor, those words would be fine. But on the way to the drunken Star Manor, Ye Yuan caused a ruckus, as if he was afraid that people would not know he was bringing someone to challenge the drunken Star Manor. He attracted many people, and currently, the drunken Star Manor's lobby was swarmed to the point where water cannot flow through. To say that Wan Donghai was the #1 in the state of Qin in front of so many people was clearly intentional. One had to know that the alchemy grandmasters in the capital were not only Wan Donghai and Yahang. Ignoring others, There was also an alchemy grandmaster in the imperial family. If these words were to spread to the ears of the imperial family, Wan Donghai would be sitting on pins and needles. The intelligence network of the imperial family covered the entire state. God knows if there were a spy from the imperial family within the crowd. Currently, Wan Donghai was feeling uncomfortable as if he had eaten a fly, yet he had to smile and greet Ye Yuan. "What are you saying, honorable nephew? How can I dare to claim to be the number one in the state of Qin? At least your father's and the imperial uncle's alchemy deo standards aren't below mine. However, I find it a little strange that honorable nephew came to the Drunken Star Manor to seek medical help. With an expert like your father, why didn't you find him, but come to our Drunken Star Manor instead?" Ye Yuan smiled and said, "It's a matter of expediency. Firstly, your Drunken Star Manor has always been hailed as number one in the capital. Secondly, it was obviously because this place is nearer." As Ye Yuan spoke, he pointed to Luan, who looked like a dead dog, and with a face full of benevolence he said, "I met this person in excruciating agony on the road. Thinking about how heaven cares for every living thing, I brought him to the Drunken Star Manor to seek medical help. But who would have thought that even after swapping a few physicians, they still couldn't do it? This capital's number one." Wan Donghai suddenly discovered that he could not gain any advantage from this youth in front of him. Something was wrong. Yesterday, UNER even sent news back saying that he plotted to poison Ye Hang's son to death. So why was this brat alive and kicking here today at the Drunken Star Manor? Needless to say, if Ye Yuan casually found someone to cause trouble, Wan Donghai naturally would not be concerned. But he just had to bring over Luan. This was indeed too much of a coincidence. Things would be fine if he could cure him. But if he could not, what if this Luan betrayed the Drunken Star Manor? Luan's identity cannot be known to the public. Apart from fellow alchemists, many demonic beast hunters were also there. Once Luan's identity was exposed, it would absolutely be a tremendous blow to the Drunken Star Manor. Then again, just what was wrong with Luan? He was perfectly fine when he left for the Fragrant Medicine Pavilion. It was only some internal injuries. Why did he become a dead dog when he returned? With Wan Donghai's attainments in the alchemy deo, a single glance and he could tell that Luan was poisoned. But just what kind of poison could leave so many masters completely helpless, and finally made the shopkeeper invited himself out? At that moment, Wan Donghai thought of everything which had happened and realized it was highly unusual. If this was not handled properly, it might cause a massive blow to the Drunken Star Manor. Currently, Wan Donghai was regretting that he did not send people to investigate the Fragrant Medicine Pavilion. He remained passive as the situation was unclear. But he never expected something to happen to Luan, who had concealed himself so well. "Ma Manor Lord, SA save me." Luan groaned and currently was lying feebly on the ground. Luan's words, as if it triggered Wan Donghai's sensitive nerves, made him frown even harder, almost like an upside-down eighth. "1. Eighth. Manor Lord, why do I feel as if this friend over here knows you?" Ye Yuan acted as if he just realized something's odd. He purposely said these words loudly so that everyone could hear them. Other people naturally felt nothing when they heard him, but these words held a different meaning in Wan Donghai's ears. Wan Donghai felt extreme hatred in his heart, yet he displayed a nonchalant attitude. "Honorable nephew, you must be joking. This Wan can be considered to have some fame within the imperial city. My Drunken Star Manor also saved many demonic beast hunters before. Naturally, it isn't strange for him to recognize me." Ye Yuan came to a realization and said, "So that's the case. But when I brought this friend over here, I've never mentioned that he is a demonic beast hunter. How did Manor Lord Wan manage to tell with one glance?" This nephew is impressed by Manor Lord Wan's sharp eyes. Initially, the crowd was still unclear about what's going on. But after Ye Yuan's insinuation, everyone suddenly understood what was going on, resulting in an awkward atmosphere. Luan was only an 8th level xianxia realm martial artist. It was not odd for him to recognize Wan Donghai, but for Wan Donghai to recognize him as a demonic beast hunter at a glance was definitely something unusual. However, this did not mean Wan Donghai cannot get to know demonic beast hunters. On the contrary, he knew several of them. However, with his status, the demonic beast hunters he knew were all at least spirit condensation realm martial artists and outstanding ones at that. How could Wan Donghai recognize a small fry like Luan? There was not a wall in this world which did not have a crack. There had always been rumors about the Drunken Star Manor sending people to infiltrate demonic beast hunter teams and killing their companions. It was just that there was never any evidence found. Furthermore, the Drunken Star Manor was extremely powerful and had helped many demonic beast hunters. Hence, these rumors had always remained as just hearsay. Yaoyuan intentionally baited Wan Donghai by purposely creating inconsistencies with what was said. This made it as if Wan Donghai had something to hide, which left the crowd to their imaginations. At this point, Wan Donghai felt as if there were tens of thousands of horses galloping across his heart, yet he was unable to stop Yaoyuan at all. Yaoyuan purposely blew the matter out of proportion so that Wan Donghai would spare the rat to save the dishes, and not take action against him. Ha 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 ha. Honorable nephew misunderstood the situation. This person looks like he has some abilities, plus he is inflicted with a bizarre poison. Just a single glance and it's clear there is an 80% chance he is a demonic beast hunter, Wan Donghai explained with a forced laugh. Yaoyuan's goal had been accomplished, so he did not choose to keep harping on it. Instead, he left the crowd to their own thoughts. So that's the case. Manor Lord Wan would have to forgive me. This nephew, I, was just recently poisoned and nearly lost my life. Hence, the doubt. Maybe I'm overthinking it. After all, those rumors are obviously nonsense. Oh right, we've been chatting for so long we almost forgot to save the patient. Just look at the expression in this friend's eyes. He's practically seeing Manor Lord Wan as his relative. Oops. Wrong. It is his savior. Yaoyuan messed around for some time before finally returning to the topic at hand. In any case, it's not like you have to pay with your life for grossing people to death. Yaoyuan naturally did not mind grossing Wan Donghai out a little more. He was also collecting some interest for his predecessor. At this moment, Wan Donghai could not argue even with 100 mouths. Yaoyuan would not give him the chance to do so either. Wan Donghai frowned as he looked at Luan on the ground, and then instructed the servants, "Men, bring this friend to the back hall. I will diagnose him." Wan Donghai was only half finished before being interrupted by Yaoyuan. "Manor Lord Wan, can't you see how many friends came today? All of us just want to witness the splendor of Manor Lord Wan's alchemy Deo. Manor Lord Wan cannot disappoint us. Everyone says that Manor Lord Wan is the best in the capital, yet few had actually seen Manor Lord Wan demonstrate own skills. Hearing is deceiving, seeing is believing. Manor Lord Wan should just display own abilities, so everyone can broaden their horizons, as well as giving us juniors an opportunity to observe." Right, everyone. The crowd came to watch a show, and with such a great show starting they naturally would not leave. Instead, they echoed their support. Now that Wan Donghai was riding a tiger, he found it hard to get off. Looking at Yaoyuan, he wished he could hack him to pieces. At any rate, he was a Grandmaster class figure. Who would have thought he would be cornered to such an extent in front of so many people by a junior? Isn't it just a detoxification procedure? I will detoxify for you to see. Within the state of Qin, what poison was he unable to treat? Not to mention this poison was concocted by a junior like Yaoyuan. Wan Donghai understood Yehang quite well. This matter was definitely not instigated by Yehang. That fellow always competed openly and with honor. Even if it was to make trouble, he would not send his own son. This was definitely all Ye Yuan's idea. Merely a silk pants. Did he expect he can flip the heavens? Although there was nothing to be proud of with smacking a junior's face, since you already delivered yourself to the door, then isn't it a shame to not smack you? Wan Donghai waved his long sleeve and instructed, since everyone's in such a good mood, I will detoxify this friend in front of everyone. Men, set him down. Seeing this, the crowd acted as if they were on stimulants and flocked in at once. They really wanted to see how the super silk pants Ye Yuan, with his widespread notoriety, could challenge the drunken Star Manor's Manor Lord. By this time, even a fool would not believe that Ye Yuan just happened to bump into Luan on the streets. This poison was most likely concocted by Ye Yuan himself. As for the person who got poisoned, even if it was not like in the rumors, he definitely had a close and intricate relationship with the drunken Star Manor. Many of those present were professionals. They already found out about what happened in the morning over at the Fragrant Medicine Pavilion. Connecting the dots to the situation happening under their eyes, several brighter folks already guessed Ye Yuan came here to give the Manor Lord a dose of his own medicine. Wan Donghai looked at the half-dead Luan and could not wait to kill him with a single blow. This incompetent thing not only failed to complete his mission but had also caused so much trouble for him. At this moment, Luan was already in agonizing pain, occasionally twitching, just like a dead fish. Wan Donghai did not want to smash his own signboard. Hence, there was no choice but to save Luan. Wan Donghai occasionally lifted Luan's eyelids, sometimes took his pulse, and at times loosened up Luan's clothes to inspect his body. Tinkering for almost half the day, his heart gradually sunk to rock bottom, his brows locked even tighter together. He was actually incapable of identifying any clues at all. An alchemy grandmaster was actually unable to diagnose what poison the patient was inflicted with. This was completely inconceivable. Were it not for the fact Luan was like a dead fish right now, Wan Donghai would even suspect that he was collaborating with Ye Yuan to tear down his stage. Big brother, how is it? Looking at Wan Donghai's knitted brows, Wan Dongyang had a bad premonition. Go, fetch my high-grade detoxification pill over, Wan Donghai instructed while gritting his teeth together as if he just made a difficult decision. What? That high-grade detoxification pill was something you spent a great effort to refine. It's intended for His Majesty. Now you want to use it on him, exclaimed Wan Dongyang. Just go since I asked you to. What's with all the nonsense? Wan Donghai had already lost his patience at this point and became very irritable. Enhance your reading experience by removing ads for as low as $1.